America's 35BN new nuclear power plant. There are many ways to generate power: coal, wind, sunlight, water, and nuclear, the most controversial of them all. Despite that controversy, the U.S. is about to open the biggest nuclear power plant in the country. Today, we're going to explore America's plan to transform a 40-year-old nuclear power plant into the largest source of power in the entire country. First, let's discuss why nuclear power is such a controversial topic. On paper, it's one of the best options for power generation. For instance, 1 kg of coal can power a washing machine for 6 hours. 1 kg of oil can power it for 9 hours, but 1 kg of a nuclear fuel, like uranium, can power a washing machine for an astonishing 2,000 years straight. I'm not a nuclear physicist, but let me explain how nuclear power generation generally works. Essentially, unstable atoms are placed in a reactor. A particle is fired at them, causing them to split apart. This split releases a vast amount of thermal energy, which turns water into steam. The steam turns turbines, and these turbines generate electricity. Unfortunately, there's a catch. When these atoms split, they leave behind radioactive waste. This waste is dangerous, emitting particles and radiation that can cause serious harm to humans and other life forms. Nuclear power plants do their best to safely contain these waste products, but there have been several high-profile accidents in recent decades. In 2011, the Fukushima power plant in Japan was struck by an earthquake and a tsunami, leading to one of the worst nuclear accidents in history. The reactors were damaged, the cooling systems failed, and the plant suffered a catastrophic meltdown. Radioactive material spilled into the ocean and the atmosphere, causing the evacuation of anyone living within 20 km. More than 10 years later, the area remains radioactive and uninhabitable, potentially for another 40 years. Earlier than Fukushima, the Chernobyl power plant exploded in Ukraine, sending radioactive clouds drifting over Europe. It's hard to be sure of the exact numbers, but this potentially contaminated millions of people, leading to increased cancer and birth defects in the region. The National Research Center for Radiation Medicine in Kyiv estimated that roughly 3 million people in Ukraine alone were harmed by the events at Chernobyl. Even when everything goes right, storing nuclear waste is far from easy or perfect. It's usually packaged in barrels and buried in remote underground caves where the radiation can't escape. However, this waste will be dangerous for well over 1,000 years. Is it really wise to try to store such hazardous material for so long? This is why nuclear power is so controversial. It provides a lot of energy but comes with significant risks. In 1990, not long after Chernobyl, Italy rejected nuclear power entirely. In 2011, after Fukushima, Germany closed 8 of its plants. Many countries are phasing out nuclear power and shifting to other energy sources. But not every country is taking this approach. It's time to talk about Plant Vogtle. If you live in Georgia, you might have heard of it. It's an old American nuclear plant, first built in the 1970s, back when nuclear power was booming. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC, issued dozens of construction permits, trying to build as many plants as possible. One of these newly commissioned plants was Plant Vogtle, designed with a pair of separate units, each with its own reactor and cooling towers. These towers are 170 tall, larger than many skyscrapers. The Plant Vogtle project wasn't cheap, costing around $9 billion, close to $20 billion in today's money. If things had gone differently, Plant Vogtle might never have been finished. In 1979, during its construction, an accident at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power station in Pennsylvania raised concerns. An automatic valve closed, shutting off the water supply and causing a partial meltdown. This incident led many Americans to question nuclear power's safety, and the NRC stopped issuing new permits. The nuclear gold rush was over, and many projects were canceled. However, not all of America's nuclear power plants were canceled. Work at Plant Vogtle continued, despite new safety regulations that increased costs. Even when Chernobyl exploded in 1986, construction at Vogtle continued. Despite the dangers, the risks are relatively low when a plant is well organized and well run. Plant Vochtel's team believed they wouldn't repeat Chernobyl's mistakes, and they were right. The 2 reactors at Plant Vochtel have been operating smoothly, with only one significant incident. In 1990, when a truck backed into a power line causing a 15-minute outage, Plant Vochtel generates just under 20 million megawatt-hours of energy every year, making it one of America's top 10 power sources. It's a great example of the benefits nuclear power can bring when everything goes to plan. This success is why the plant's owners, with the NRC's backing, decided to expand the project. Enter Vochtel 2.0. In the early 2000s, America's attitude toward nuclear power began to shift. George W. Bush launched a program called Nuclear Power 2010, aiming to set up new nuclear generators around the country, offering generous subsidies. Some called it the nuclear renaissance. Encouraged by this, the team at Vochtel sought to overtake Palo Verde, the largest source of power in the U.S., by adding 2 more reactors, bringing their total to 4. In 2006, they applied for a permit, and during this nuclear renaissance, the NRC said yes. Between 2009 and 2013, many companies applied for licenses to build new reactors, reminiscent of the 1970s. But the nuclear boom didn't last. In 2011, the Fukushima disaster reignited fears, leading to canceled or suspended permits. However, Vochtel survived again with new safety measures added to protect against disasters like earthquakes or falling airplanes. Construction of the new reactors at Vochtel began in 2013. 1 reactor was completed and connected to the power grid in 2023, and the other is set to start operations in 2024. These new reactors are landmarks, the first newly constructed nuclear units in America in over 30 years. They are massive, weighing more than the Statue of Liberty, and used enough steel and concrete to build a sidewalk from Miami to Seattle. They feature advanced safety systems and are more efficient than older models. When both reactors are operational, Vochtel will double its output, making it America's largest single source of energy. But this breakthrough came at a price: $35 billion for the new reactors on top of the $20 billion already spent. While other countries like Germany have closed their nuclear plants, Vochtel has doubled its capacity, becoming the country's most important power source. This raises an important question: which approach is right? While living without nuclear power might seem safer, it comes at a cost. Countries that don't use nuclear power need other energy sources. Ideally, they would turn to renewables like wind or hydroelectric power, but this isn't always realistic. To match Vochtel's output, America would need a wind farm covering nearly 20% of Georgia. Fossil fuels are another option, but they harm our climate. Nuclear power is carbon-free, which might make it worth the risk. In some ways, it feels like an impossible choice. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.